St. Edmunds Redevelopment Corporation, where faith meets works. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also.
Faith is the initial reason. Faith in Jesus Christ and the desire to be a faithful witness for Him through concrete actions of empowering human beings is an outgrowth of that faith.
I always like to say that faith is a matter of putting our beliefs into practice. Quite clear, it says faith without works is dead. You might have it, but what does it mean? And the way to see what it means is how it shapes your choices and your activities and your advocacy in this world.
Faith is alive and working in St. Edmunds Episcopal Church through the St. Edmunds Redevelopment Corporation, also known as CERC. CERC was founded in 1990 by St. Edmunds, the Reverend Dr. Richard Tolliver, to serve as a catalyst for the revitalization of the Washington Park neighborhood's deteriorating housing stock and pressing community needs caused by public and private disinvestment and the resulting demographic trends.
Washington Park, from the mid-1920s, became a neighborhood that permitted blacks to live in. At that time, the housing stock consisted primarily of multifamily buildings that were in great shape. By the time I arrived in June of 1989, there was an obvious disinvestment in the housing stock that had occurred, much of that due to an over-construction of public housing in the neighborhood, the building of the Dan Ryan Expressway in the mid-1950s. All of that caused disinvestment, and that impact showed with vacant land and abandoned buildings in Washington Park.
Without housing stock, communities fail, they die and fail. And so it's important as a member of this church that we continue to be a beacon of hope for this community. And one of those ways is housing.
St. Edmunds Church owned a vacant lot probably 3 doors south of the church. Through the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago, I was introduced to an individual who headed a task force on affordable housing. That person, Ron Gatton, met with a small group of us and told us about an option that was available through a federal program to begin to build affordable housing.
When I first met with Reverend Tolliver to discuss his vision for the church's housing ministry, we talked about what would be the best way to accomplish that and concluded that the formation of a community development corporation, a nonprofit corporation, would be the best way for the church to achieve that goal.
CERC met the challenge to provide affordable housing head-on with the development of its first project.
The first CERC project was the purchase and rehabilitation of a 16-unit apartment building that had been vacant so long that no one had any memory of how long it had been abandoned. We asked parishioners of St. Edmunds Church to make donations. The Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago made a generous donation, and that enabled us to acquire the building. We then used a newly established government program called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program to put together the equity to actually renovate the building and restore it.
The first time you do anything is always a challenge. We had particular challenges because, as being both church-based and not having any experience, it was very difficult to find a lender who was willing to do business with us. In fact, we went through several lenders before finally a small African-American owned bank stepped up and made the loan on our first project.
As CERC expanded its revitalization activities, attracting funding for both development activities and ongoing operations was a constant challenge.
There have always been funding challenges, both on the development side and on the operational side.
You don't finance it right, it's not going to ever turn out right. So you have to have adequate money to pay for the rehab or the construction. You have to have a good development team. You have to have a high quality product. And then when you come to the business of operating it, you have to do very careful tenant selection to make sure that you're building a community of people who themselves have aspirations for their families, for the neighborhood, for themselves.
In neighborhoods such as Washington Park, where there has been a vast amount of disinvestment, studies clearly show without an infusion of public dollars first to help address some of the critical needs of the neighborhood, the private dollars don't follow.
We have, at this point, achieved the investment of more than $100 million of private investment and government invested in the neighborhood. But it has been very challenging and continues to be that way.
The Chicago Community Loan Fund is especially proud to partner with the St. Edmunds Redevelopment Corporation because we were created 27 years ago by founding directors who wanted the Chicago Community Loan Fund to have a special role in supporting the development activities of grassroots neighborhood development organizations like St. Edmunds.
True to its mission, St. Edmunds Redevelopment Corporation has transformed Washington Park.
CERC currently owns 731 units in 34 different buildings. One of the things I insist on when we build new properties is that none of them have a project look and that they would be housing inviting enough that any of us would want to live in.
I think that the properties are modern, they're clean, they're built with energy efficiency in mind, and also with a long-term vision.
Reverend Tolliver works very hard to see that the product that we're developing is one that everybody can be proud of.
St. Edmunds Oasis is designed to be a very attractive facility that anybody would want to live in, both from the exterior curb appeal and in terms of the interior design and amenities.
I like living in St. Edmunds Oasis because they have a lot of amenities. I love the space, and I love that it have like an upstairs and downstairs and give it a house kind of feel.
CERC has sought to serve its residents, from affordable housing for the elderly with St. Edmunds Towers, Tower Annex, and St. Edmunds Havens, to education for young people through the formation of the Chicago International Charter Schools Washington Park campus, housed in part in St. Edmunds Church. CERC has recognized that for revitalization to occur, both the perception and reality of improved security is essential.
We've ensured the safety of St. Edmunds residents through a variety of mechanisms. We make sure that our buildings are secure in terms of one's ability to enter and leave. We have security. We hire 3 off-duty Chicago policemen to also patrol our properties. We have a vast network of cameras that monitor our portfolio so that we at all times can see what's going on. We always reach out and make ourselves known to the commanders in the districts in which our portfolio is represented.
Well, St. Edmunds has been a great resource and a great partner with the City of Chicago Police Department and the City of Chicago itself. What we've done is we've incorporated our camera system and integrated our camera system with their camera system so we can kind of build our crime strategy around their problems so we can have a safer community.
CERC accomplishments are now such that new energy and resources are being attracted to partner in the overall revitalization effort. For example, CERC is liquidating some of its older assets so it can undertake new development projects rather than simply recycling its existing portfolio.
At this point in time, some of our buildings are over 25 years old. So we took a couple of our assets that very much we thought needed upgrading and new infusion of capital and put them on the market, and that's what we're doing at this point.
Jarrell Housing Group controls about 500 units of affordable housing in the city of Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. 6 years ago, we acquired a 22-unit building that is directly across the street from a St. Edmunds property. And almost immediately, Reverend Tolliver reached out to us and said he was going to keep his eye on us as owners and operators.
And then a portion of St. Edmunds' portfolio became available, and we jumped at the opportunity to acquire it and to maintain what St. Edmunds and Reverend Tolliver has been doing in the community of Washington Park.
This is exciting for us because it's attracting other development partners to Washington Park, as well as freeing us up to look at new development initiatives so that partnering together, we can accelerate the pace of redeveloping the housing stock in Washington Park.
CERC aspires to be the catalyst for making Washington Park an attractive place for investment by the entire range of commerce and the public sector.
I think the importance of St. Edmunds Redevelopment Corporation is that it shows what can be done when one person, one church, refuses to accept the status quo and goes about really creating the reality of a vision they have of what can happen in inner city communities in this country.
The work at St. Edmunds is stunning. The Redevelopment Corporation has an impact in remaking an entire community. That reach is further and more systemic than most congregations can manage, and is an example, the Redevelopment Corporation, an example by itself of partnering, that public-private partnership, that intersection of church and world.
One of the exciting things that keeps me going is the positive feedback I get from residents who tell me how happy they are to live in housing provided by St. Edmunds. So that really makes me say that we must be doing something that's enhancing the quality of life for the people who live in our buildings.
It is fair to say that the activities of CERC to revitalize the neighborhood have also served to revitalize St. Edmunds Church itself and stand as living witness to the Scripture.